Emily Carter sat at her desk, eyes focused on the screen. Her voice was calm and professional as she spoke to a long-time client over Zoom. She had done this 100 times before. The numbers, the shipping schedules, the deadlines, it all came naturally to her. She was steady, focused, always in control. But then, a small notification popped up on the corner of her screen. Missed call, James Rawlins, family lawyer. Her breath caught for a second. That was strange. James rarely called her unless it was important. She tried to ignore it and continued her conversation, but her heart started to beat faster. Just as the meeting was ending, another notification appeared, this time from Instagram. She didn't usually check it during work, but the alert was impossible to ignore. It was from her sister, Vanessa Carter. The name hit her like a slap. Emily hadn't seen or heard from Vanessa in almost 10 years. She had left the family in chaos, running off after years of reckless behavior, and never looked back. The photo stopped Emily cold. Vanessa stood in the marble-floored lobby of Carter Freight Logistics, the company their late father built from the ground up. She was smiling, holding a keycard, and wearing a company badge. The caption read, "Back where I belong." Emily's hands went cold. She blinked, reading the words again and again, hoping she misunderstood. She immediately called her mother. No answer. Then her stepfather. Voicemail. She called James, the family lawyer. Straight to voicemail again. A few minutes later, her phone buzzed. A text from James. "I assumed your parents had already told you. The business transfer to Vanessa is complete." Emily stared at the screen, trying to breathe. Her heart pounded in her chest. What did he mean, complete? What transfer? This had to be a mistake. She was the one who had stayed. She was the one who helped run the company when their father got sick. Vanessa had disappeared. She called her mother again. This time, she answered. "Hi, Mum. What's going on?" Emily asked, her voice shaking. There was a pause. Then her mother replied, flat and cold. "It was your father's decision. We didn't think you'd take it well." Emily's mouth opened, but no words came out. Her world, the one she had built so carefully, felt like it was cracking apart. She stood there, phone still pressed to her ear, as everything she thought she knew began to slip away. Emily grew up as the dependable one, quiet, responsible, overlooked. She was the child who never caused trouble, who always followed the rules. When her father's health started to get worse, she stayed. She gave up her dream of studying abroad. She stayed in town, got a degree in business, and helped run the company while other people her age chased bigger dreams. No one asked her to, but they expected it. Vanessa, her younger sister, was the complete opposite. Loud, wild, and full of drama. She was the one who partied too hard, who skipped school, who crashed her car and somehow ended up with more love for it. Their parents, especially their mother, always gave Vanessa another chance. Emily could never understand it. When Vanessa got into a drug scandal at 20 and left home, disappearing without a word, Emily thought maybe, just maybe, things would change. Maybe now her parents would finally see her. Maybe they would notice all the ways she had held the family together. But nothing changed. Life moved on, and Emily kept doing what needed to be done. Her father got worse, and she was the one who took him to doctor appointments, managed his medications, handled payroll, and made sure shipments were on time. She kept the business running. She kept her family from falling apart. And still, she lived in a small apartment, alone. She didn't date much. She didn't have time. She was careful, quiet, always doing the right thing, hoping someone would say, "We're proud of you," but no one ever did. She still remembered being 14 and winning a national essay competition. She had worked so hard on it. She brought the certificate home, excited. Her mother had been cooking dinner. She looked up, said, "That's nice, Emily," and turned back to the stove. A year later, Vanessa crashed the family car while drunk. Their father hugged her and said, "We all make mistakes." Even now, years later, those memories still hurt. After the lawyer's message and her mother's cold words, Emily felt broken. She had to know why they would give everything to the sister who left them. So she drove to her parents' house. Her mother opened the door but didn't invite her in. They stood in the hallway, the light dim and the air tense. "Why didn't you tell me?" Emily asked, trying to stay calm. Her mother looked away. "It was your father's decision." "That's not an answer," Emily said. "Why didn't anyone think I deserved to know?" Her stepfather came into the room. Vanessa's back. She's trying to start over. She needs a second chance. Emily's face tightened. And I get erased to make room for her? You're overreacting, her mother said. Number I stayed. I worked. I gave up everything for this family. And you just gave it all to someone who didn't care enough to call when Dad was dying. Her stepfather sighed. Emily, you've always been difficult, closed off. We didn't think you'd handle it well. Emily shook her head slowly. I was never allowed to be anything else. I did everything you asked, and it still wasn't enough. There was silence. Her mother wouldn't meet her eyes. Her stepfather walked away without another word. Emily stood there for a moment, waiting, hoping someone would stop her. No one did. She walked back to her car, sat behind the wheel, and stared at the house for a long time. The house where she grew up, the house where she was always invisible. Emily discovers that not only has Vanessa been given the company, but the transfer included her shares. Shares she was always told were being held in trust for her. For years, her parents said the paperwork was just a formality. It's all for your future, they had said. You'll take over one day. Now, sitting across from the family lawyer in a quiet, polished office, she realized it had all been a lie. James, the lawyer, looked uncomfortable as he slid a thick file across the table. It was done 6 months ago, he said. Your name was removed from the documents. The shares were signed over to Vanessa. Emily stared at the papers, her heart pounding in her chest. Removed? She asked. How? You needed my signature. You said, they cited your emotional unavailability, James said softly. Said you were too withdrawn to lead. The decision was signed by your mother, stepfather, and Vanessa. Your father's final instructions were vague, but he didn't object. I asked if you knew, and they assured me you did. Emily felt like the air had been sucked from the room. Emotional unavailability. She had worked late nights, missed holidays, managed crises. She had put her entire life into that company, into them. She stood up slowly. I quit, she said, her voice flat. Effective immediately. James looked startled. Emily, please, think this through. There's nothing to think about, she said, grabbing her bag. I won't be part of this. Let them figure it out without me. She walked out of the office and drove straight to the company building. She didn't tell anyone what was happening. She simply packed her things, emailed a quick note to the staff, and left everything in chaos. By the time she was walking to her car in the parking lot, Vanessa was already pulling up in a silver SUV, music blasting. She stepped out in heels and sunglasses, like she was arriving for a red carpet. Well, well, Vanessa said, smiling. Didn't think I'd see you here so soon. Emily didn't answer. I heard you quit, Vanessa continued, pulling off her sunglasses. That's too bad. I was going to offer you a junior consultant role, to keep you in the loop. Emily's hand moved before she could stop herself. The slap was quick and sharp. Vanessa's head turned slightly from the impact, but she didn't flinch. She just touched her cheek and raised her eyebrows. Their mother came rushing out the front doors a moment later. Emily, what on earth are you doing? She just stole my life, Emily said, shaking with anger. And you all helped her. Her mother stepped between them, her voice low but bitter. You're just jealous. You've always been jealous of her. Emily blinked, stunned. Jealous? Yes, her mother said. You could never stand the fact that Vanessa has something you don't. Charm, life, people like her. Emily laughed, but there was no humor in it. She abandoned us. She ran away when Dad needed us most. I stayed. I gave everything. Her mother's face stayed cold. And yet, you still weren't the right fit. Emily couldn't believe what she was hearing. She looked at her mother, really looked at her, and felt something inside her break. Not in a loud, dramatic way, but in a quiet, final one. She walked away without another word, got into her car, and drove. She didn't know where she was going. She just needed to get away. All those years of trying to be enough. All those late nights, sacrifices, silent tears. And it came down to this. They chose Vanessa. And now, Emily had nothing left to give. Emily spent the next few weeks in a fog. Her days passed in silence, filled with long walks, cold coffee, and unanswered questions. At night, she barely slept. Her mind kept going over the documents, the signatures, the betrayal. She couldn't understand how it had all happened without her knowing. She had trusted them. She had trusted him, her father. Determined to get answers, Emily began digging through old emails, contracts, and bank statements. She visited the lawyer again, asked to see the original succession plan, and found that 6 months before her father died, he had made quiet changes. Her shares were redirected to Vanessa. It was all legal, all signed. James had the nerve to call it clean. Emily felt sick. She remembered the final year of her father's life like it had happened yesterday. The hospital visits, the nights she slept in the chair beside his bed, the time she had to bathe him when the nurse didn't show up. She had never once complained. She thought he had seen her. She thought they had finally connected. And Vanessa, she didn't even call. Not once. No apology. No goodbye. It was like all of that never mattered. Like love and loyalty were invisible next to charm and chaos. Meanwhile, Vanessa wasted no time showing off her new role. She began posting photos on social media, smiling with champagne, standing with new hires who looked more like party guests than employees, turning the office into her own personal playground. She fired 2 of the company's longest-serving staff members, including the woman who had been their father's assistant for 15 years. She said they didn't match the new vision. Emily heard through old co-workers that Vanessa was throwing themed events in the office and turning business meetings into cocktail hours. The company's reputation, once strong and steady, started to crack. Clients began pulling out. Orders were delayed. People started whispering that Carter Freight was falling apart. Emily watched it all happen from a distance, helpless. She still cared, no matter how hard she tried not to. Her best friend Lauren came over one night, bringing dinner and wine. They sat on Emily's couch, the TV muted. "You should go public," Lauren said. "Tell your story, what they did to you. It's not okay." Emily shook her head. "It won't change anything. People will think I'm bitter, that I couldn't handle losing." "But you didn't just lose," Lauren said. "They stole it from you." Emily stared down at her hands. "I feel ashamed, like maybe I wasn't enough. Maybe I was too cold, too quiet." Lauren leaned forward. "Emily, you gave your life to them, to that company. They took your silence as weakness. That's not on you." Emily didn't reply. She just stared at the wall until the silence filled the room. A few days later, she was invited to a family dinner. Her mother sent the text. "It would be nice to see you. Vanessa will be there." Emily didn't want to go. Every part of her said not to, but part of her, some small, bruised piece, wanted answers, maybe even closure. She arrived at the restaurant in a simple black dress. It was raining lightly. She sat in the car for a moment before going in, steadying her breath. When she walked into the private room, she froze. The table was decorated with gold balloons and candles. Vanessa sat at the head of the table, laughing with a glass of wine in hand. Her mother and stepfather sat beside her, smiling. Even a few extended family members were there. A small sign on the table read, "Welcome back, CEO Vanessa Carter." Emily's heart sank. This wasn't just dinner. It was a celebration. A throne had been handed down, and no one had thought to tell her. She stood at the edge of the table, soaked from the rain, unsure of what to do. Her mother looked up and said, "Emily, you made it." Emily didn't smile. "What is this?" "A small celebration," her stepfather said. "Vanessa's new chapter." Vanessa raised her glass. "I figured I should start my reign properly." Emily's voice cracked. "You're celebrating her like she saved something, like she didn't burn it all down." The room fell quiet. "I gave everything to this family," Emily said, her voice shaking. "I worked every holiday. I stayed when Dad got sick. I gave up my life. And you all just erased me." Her mother looked uncomfortable. Her stepfather, cold. "You should have done it out of love," he said. "Not for recognition." Emily stared at him. "I did do it out of love, but even love needs to be seen." No one said anything. Vanessa sipped her wine and looked away. Emily backed away from the table. Her dress was damp. Her hands trembled. She turned and walked out into the night, the rain falling harder now, soaking her hair and clothes. She didn't run. She didn't cry. She just walked, far from the people who forgot her, far from the family who never saw her. Emily had stopped watching the company news until a former colleague sent her a message. It was a screenshot of a luxury spa invoice paid with Carter Freight funds, signed off by Vanessa. Underneath it was a string of similar receipts: designer clothes, travel tickets, private parties, all paid from the company's account. At first, Emily thought it was fake, but as she looked closer, she recognized internal codes, invoice formats, and approval stamps. It was real. She didn't know whether to be angry or sad. Vanessa hadn't just been reckless, she had been stealing. From the business their father built, from the people who still worked there, from Emily's own years of sacrifice. Quietly, she began collecting evidence. She reached out to a few remaining employees she still trusted. They sent her more documents, more proof. Vanessa had been using company money to fund her new lifestyle while cutting jobs and ignoring unpaid contracts. Emily didn't go to her parents. She didn't go to the lawyer. Instead, she went to the press, anonymously. Within a week, a local business paper published the leak. Headlines read, "New CEO accused of misusing company funds." The article included expense reports, timelines, and quotes from angry former employees. It spread quickly. Investors pulled out. Board members demanded answers. By the end of the month, Vanessa was forced to resign. She walked out of the company in tears, her sunglasses hiding her face as cameras flashed outside. The company's stocks plummeted. The Carter family name was dragged through the mud. Emily was called in by the board. They offered her a job, a chance to help stabilize things. But it came with conditions. She'd be under supervision. She wouldn't be in charge. It would look like they were letting her in out of pity, not respect. She declined. Instead, she filed a lawsuit. Fraud, misappropriation of assets, breach of fiduciary duty. The documents spoke for themselves. The trial drew attention. The media loved the story. The loyal daughter pushed aside. The wild sister given power. The scandal that followed. In court, both sides argued, but the evidence Emily had gathered was solid. Then came the surprise. The court allowed one piece of audio into evidence, a voicemail. It had been left on the company lawyer's answering machine months before their father passed. It had never been deleted. The courtroom went silent as it played. Her father's voice, tired but clear. "Emily's the only one who can run this company. She's been here through everything. But her mother thinks we should give Vanessa one last chance. I don't agree, but I'm too tired to fight. I hope I'm wrong." The room was still. Emily couldn't breathe. For a moment, it felt like he was alive again, and for the first time, she heard what she had waited for her whole life. He had seen her. Vanessa stared at the floor. Her hands clenched the table. The judge asked if she wanted to respond. She stood, shaking. "You set me up to fail," she said, looking at her parents. "You knew I wasn't ready. You knew she was the one who deserved it, and you still gave it to me, just to see if I'd crash." Her voice rose. "You set her up to lose. You set me up to fall. What did you think would happen?" No one answered. Emily didn't smile. She didn't feel triumphant, only tired. The court ruled in her favor, partial compensation for the stolen shares, and a public acknowledgement of the breach. It wasn't everything, but it was something true, something earned. Emily didn't celebrate the court win. There was no champagne, no victory party. She walked out of the courthouse with a folder in her hand and silence in her heart. It wasn't about revenge anymore. It hadn't been for a long time. It was about starting fresh. The money from the settlement wasn't huge, but it was enough to rent a small office space, buy a second-hand desk, and build the first version of something that was hers, truly hers. She called it Carter and Company, logistics consulting, keeping the name, not for her family, but for herself, for the version of Carter that stood for hard work, loyalty, and trust. One of the first people she hired was Rosa, the receptionist who had been laid off during Vanessa's flashy changes. Then came Kevin, one of the former drivers, who now managed scheduling and client logistics. Slowly, the team grew. They worked hard, kept things honest, and stayed lean. Clients began to return, not because of marketing or name recognition, but because they trusted Emily. Word spread. She was the one who really ran things all those years. She was the one who knew the business inside out. She didn't make promises she couldn't keep. She showed up early. She stayed late. She listened. Months passed. The big office tower where her family's company had been once buzzing was now half empty. Vanessa had disappeared again. No one knew where she went. This time, no one chased after her. One morning, Emily came into her small office to find a letter sitting on her desk. It was from her mother. It said, "We didn't know how to love you right. I see that now. I'm sorry for the hurt. I hope one day you'll let us in again." Emily stared at the page for a long time. Then she picked up a pen and wrote back one sentence. "I know. That's why I stopped trying to earn it." She didn't mail it. She folded it, put it in a drawer, and moved on with her day. Her life now was quiet, but it was hers. She had clients to call, invoices to check, and a team that looked at her with respect, not doubt. She didn't post about her wins. She didn't talk about the past. She just worked, calm, steady, grounded. And for the first time in her life, that was enough. It was a quiet morning. The sun slipped gently through the blinds of Emily's small office, casting warm lines across her desk. She was organizing old papers in a drawer when she found it, a folded, yellowing page tucked between two folders. Her handwriting stared back at her, softer, younger. It was a letter she had started months before her father died. Dear Dad, I don't know if you'll ever read this. I just wanted to say thank you for trusting me with so much, for letting me take care of things when you were too tired to. Sometimes, I think you almost saw me. I mean, really saw me, but maybe I just imagined it. That's where it had ended. No signature, no closure. Emily read it over slowly, her chest tightening, not with sadness, but with something quieter, something like peace. She picked up a pen and added to the bottom, you did see me, didn't you? Maybe not always, and maybe not out loud, but I know now, and I forgive you. I'm okay. She placed the letter back into the drawer. There were no tears, just a long, steady breath. Her laptop chimed. A Zoom window popped up. Her first client of the day, a small family-owned business needing help reorganizing their delivery systems, the kind of job her father would have respected. Emily smiled gently at the screen, straightened her shoulders, and clicked. Join. Outside, the sun rose higher, painting gold across the office wall. She was no longer waiting to be chosen. She had already chosen herself. Hey besties, thanks so much for watching till the very end. If this story gave you all the feels, make sure to like, comment your thoughts, and hit that follow button for more drama-filled stories. Love you tons. See you in the next one. Bye.